Big 12 need some help? That's why we're here. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Best discussion, debate, and analysis based on your participation and contribution right here at the Voice of College Football. Let's lock it in. Let's get to it. It's the Big 12 in 2024 with 16 teams. How should the conference be constructed? Let's take a look and let's look at some options. The first and most obvious one would be just line them up 1 through 16 and let them play for a championship. And of course, take the top 2 teams to play for the Big 12 championship. That all sounds well and good. However, we've got a situation where you've got a ton of teams that don't play each other. And then we have this thing called ties, not game ties, but ties in the standings. If 3 teams tie for first place at 7-2, let's say, then you've got an issue trying to determine who should play in the championship game. Or 2 or 3 teams tie for second place. Who is going to play the first place team in the conference championship game when the teams in question did not play one another on the field? That's the obvious tiebreaker, head-to-head. It's a good one, it's a great one, it's worked forever, and it's valid. However, after that, going to tie-breaking systems of common opponents and your record against them or point differential and such is just not valid. And let's look at the Big 12 in the previous 10-plus seasons to see when a tiebreaker would have been an issue, possibly, but wasn't, because we only had 10 teams in the Big 12 and they all played each other, so you had a head-to-head tiebreaker. That's all you needed. But now there are going to be 6 teams each season that every team in the conference does not play, because you've got 16 teams, you've got 9 conference games, therefore you've got 15 other teams you could play. You're not going to play 6 of them. So the likelihood of an issue, well, it's going to come up, whether it be in 2024 or 5 or 6, it's going to come up soon, believe me. Let's look at Big 12 history. In 2021, there was a tie for second place between Oklahoma and Baylor when they both went 7-2, but of course they both played, so that was not an issue. In 2016, we had a tie for second place between Oklahoma State and West Virginia, so there was not an issue because they played head-to-head, as they did in 2015, with a tie for second place at 7-2 between Oklahoma State and TCU this time. And then in 2013, they had a bit of a mess in a tie-breaking system between OU, Oklahoma State, and Texas. They all finished in second place behind Baylor at 7-2. So we can go to what has been done in college football ever since these conferences got to a certain level where we went to a conference championship game starting in the SEC in 1992, and that's to go to division play. How would the division stack up in the Big 12? Here's our recommendation. We've got 8 teams in the West, 8 in the East. Here are the schools in the West: Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, Colorado coming in from the Pac-12, BYU, the newcomer in 2023, Oklahoma State, and then keeping the rivals together, Kansas and Kansas State. So again, we are keeping rivalries together with this East-West setup. And then look at the total record of all these teams in the Western Division over the past 5 seasons, just to get a gauge on what the competitive balance could be between the East and the West. For the last 5 seasons, we've got Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, Colorado, BYU, Oklahoma State, Kansas, and Kansas State at 239 in the win column, 232 losses. Now let's look at the Eastern Division. We're keeping all the Texas schools together for obvious reasons. It's good for rivalries. It's good for big game showdowns. Houston, Texas Tech, Baylor, TCU. West Virginia, Cincinnati, UCF is that Eastern block. And then you've also got Iowa State, which of course has a long-standing series with most of the teams in the Eastern Division. Add all these records together for these 8 schools over the past 5 seasons, it's much better than the Western Division at 301 wins and 193 losses. But let's keep this in mind. Houston, UCF, and Cincinnati were playing group of 5 schedules, therefore the scheduling much easier. So I think the divisions, when we go 8-8, is really balanced. Of course, you play everyone in your division. That's 7 games. Then you play a rotating group of teams of 2. So you play everyone in your division. That's 7 games. And then, of course, you go through a rotation of 2 teams per season in the other division. So it will take 4 years to play every team in the conference. That's the East-West setup. Or we can go to the pod system with 4 teams in each pod, and let's check out how that might look. So let's look at the Southwest Division, highlighted by the Territorial Cup, Arizona State. We want them together, as well as Utah, Colorado. Not vital, but they have played on the final weekend of the season per the Pac-12 in the past 12 years. On to the Texas division. They're all Texas teams. There we go. Houston, Texas Tech, Baylor, and TCU. The Plains division, or pod, if you will. Oklahoma State, BYU, Kansas, and Kansas State. We kept, again, Kansas State together right there. And on to the Eastern division. Are there rivalries there? Well, possibly in the making. West Virginia, Cincinnati, old Big East rivals. And UCF, of course, comes over from the American with Cincinnati. So they have played important games in the American in recent years. And then you've got Iowa State as well. When we look at the competitive nature of these divisions in regards to how good these teams have been in the last 5 years, we get the Southwest Division at 105 wins and 118 losses. However, keep in mind, Arizona State have been down. Arizona State is typically a 7-8 win team through the years that goes to decent bowl games. They've been down, especially this past year, 3-9. Arizona's been awful. Jed Fish bringing them back. Utah has the opportunity to be an elite team on occasion. They're really good. They're a top 15 to 20 team. Typically, Colorado's been awful, and there's much growth there. They've hit the basement, the floor. They have a lot of growth to go. So that 105 and 118 record doesn't look good, but you would think that the upside is higher for a lot of the teams in this Southwest division. For the Texas division, over the past 5 years, these 4 schools have gone 137 and 108, which is significantly better. However, one of them, Houston, played in a group of 5 league, the American Conference, and therefore a lighter schedule. TCU's been most times the best program of these 4. Baylor obviously has had its peaks and valleys, ups and downs, scandals and so forth, but Baylor has been really good on occasion, 2013 and 14, of course, and a couple years ago in winning the Big 12 and going to the Sugar Bowl. On to the Plains. This group of 4, Oklahoma State, BYU, Kansas State, 134 and 114 over the past 5 years. Oklahoma State, of course, under Mike Gundy has been consistently a top 25 program. Kansas State really strong. Kansas has been awful, but showed us some hope under Lance Leipold last season. BYU, of course, they're taking the step up. It'll be interesting to see if they maintain that 8-4 kind of record that they've been able to accomplish as an independent. And then on to the East. This is really strong. This is really, really strong. But let's understand here, Cincinnati and UCF have peaked in the last 5 years. There's no longer a Luke Fickell at Cincinnati, and they have had one of the best records in college football the last 5 years. UCF, of course, had 2 undefeated regular seasons in 2017 and 18, and there's great potential for UCF to be a factor in this conference, of course. West Virginia's been down. They're actually going to get better, you would think, based on historical evidence. West Virginia suffering one of its down periods here in the last few years, but this division extremely strong at 164 and 85. But again, 2 of the 4 teams played group of 5 schedules. So once again, we got to find the 2 best teams in the conference, regardless of whether we go pods, divisions, or one list of 16 teams. You got to find the 2 best teams, the 2 most deserving to play in the conference championship game. I myself don't like a playoff system within a conference. We're going to ask these student athletes to play a conference playoff with semifinal games, a championship game, then go on to the college football playoff. I think it's a bit much to ask, but is it unavoidable? Is there a reputable way, a valid way to determine the 2 best teams and most deserving teams in the conference to play for a conference championship? Again, if you line them up 1 through 16, you got to have a tiebreaker system that involves not head-to-head. If you've got the 2 divisions of East and West, you simply play the 2 division winners for the conference championship game. Bingo, done. Do have an issue with only meeting teams in the other division once every 4 years. And then with the pod system, do you go with the 2 best records of the winners of the pods? Out of the 4 pods, you go with the 2 best records. Of course, you're going to have ties. You hope that those 2 teams played, then you get an easy tiebreaker. But of course, you need a tie-breaking system because there's about a 40% chance that they will not have played. And so there you go. I like to determine things on the field and head-to-head, certainly. So leave us your thoughts down below right here at the Voice of College Football concerning the Big 12 and what it's going to look like in 2024. But let's not blink in the meantime because it's probably going to be a different set of teams here for 2024 with more additions possible for down the road, whether that's UConn, San Diego State, or somebody else. SMU's right there in the Big 12's backyard in Texas. Your thoughts again right here at the Voice of College Football. See you next time.